One of the biggest joys I get in collecting model cars and doing CastHeads magazine is the research I have to do to find out what makes some cars more memorable and why they are probably worth keeping and collecting. When I was very young, I used to come home from school and watch the Gillette World Sports Special, hours of German motorsport, and the 70s was still fresh on screen. An opportunity to fall in love with the legendary works of automotive history. Cars like the Porsche 917. This car is a legend to a collector, and all the men who drove it are legendary. A hand-built flat 12 engine capable of 500 brake horsepower in the late 1960s is a product of engineering genius and handcrafted aerodynamics. I have read books, collected models, and always look for ways to add to my 917 obsession. So, when I heard that Porsche in Margate had a large-scale version, I put down my coffee. I just had to go and see it for myself. The excitement and thrill of seeing diecast up close like this is always exciting and thrilling. Enjoying yourself in the rich heritage and culture of something you love so much. I thought about the excitement the creators of this epic production would feel seeing this fly across the tarmac onto great victory race after race, and how fortunate we are with modern technology. We never need to let the fantasy die. Welcome, guys, to Cars and Caffeine with CastHeads magazine. This is a very special edition because we are here at the Hornby Museum, the Wonderworks Museum in Margate, and we are checking out one of the coolest things that I have seen this year, and that is the 917K Porsche Gulf livery design, and this is the one that comes from the Monza race. Now, if you want to check out more details about this, you can check it out on our Instagram, both on CastHeads magazine and Porsche, and you'll get all the information that you need to know about this wonderful piece in front of us. Now, this is a 1/8 scale. You put it together yourself, which gives you all the excitement that you can get from building your own Porsche. And today I am joined with the team from Porsche to talk a bit about the brand and to talk a bit about the Porsche 917K that we have right in front of us. And this one actually has been autographed by someone famous. I think it's Derek Bell, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There you go. So with me I have Charlotte and I have Scott, and they're going to be telling us all about the brand Porsche and some of the wonderful models that they are putting out and going to be put out, because if you've been keeping up with the news, they've got something nice on the horizon. So guys, please check yourselves out and check out Porsche and check out CastHeads magazine. I do hope I'm saying it correctly, because
You are.
okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
correct.
So my first question is, how long has PORSCHE been in business and been making models? Because I know this is not something new, and this is not a new brand. So obviously there's a bit of legacy behind it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so PORSCHE's been making models since the early 60s. It was actually founded in Italy, so that's where our heartland is. PORSCHE's really best known for making high detailed replicas of iconic cars. Our main scale is 1/8 scale in car form, but we have in the past made 1/4 scale motorbikes. We've been lucky to have some really amazing licenses. So the very first model was the Fiat F2 back in the 60s, but we've also had licenses with Ducati, Mercedes, Rolls-Royce, Bugatti, Ferrari, the list goes on. So yeah, we've had some amazing models.
So excellent. And in terms of putting these models together, Scott, how hard is it to do something like this? I mean, if I'm a beginner, and I am a total beginner, the only thing I put together is Lego. So if I were to get into something like this, what would be my...
I think there's two ways to look at difficulty. So yes, there's lots of parts, so the build time is going to be quite long. It's going to take a long time, but we don't intend on designing the kits around them being technically too difficult. There are some areas where there might be a challenge. You've got to feed tubing around, sort of injector hoses and things like that. But we try to make them as intuitive as possible, and we try to focus on them mainly screwing together, so you're not getting covered in sticky glue and super glue and things like that. So generally, we don't say that they are completely out of reach for a beginner, but the length of time of build is obviously long because it's quite a complicated model.
I think it's important to note the fact that it is putting together a screw model instead of using glue, because I think a lot of people that get involved in model making find two things really daunting, and that is gluing stuff together and painting it.
Painting is the other area where obviously we pre-paint all of our parts, they're in the right colours. There are some areas where you might need to apply some water decals, but we try to make that as straightforward as possible. We try and do the complicated water decaling at our vendors and not rely on the consumer to do that themselves. So yeah, you're avoiding the really difficult things about making plastic kits, for example, painting, gluing and that sort of thing, finishing, sanding. You shouldn't need to do that with a pocket kit.
And I can tell by the quality of the paint finish on that is absolutely stunning. So it's much better to leave it up to the professionals than have someone like me, for example, who'll have maybe 4 different shades or 5 different shades of blue.
And honestly, the trouble that we go through colour matching to get license or approval, Golf blue and orange in this example is a highly protected intellectual property of Golf.
Right.
So if you get those colours wrong, Golf will have an opinion on it as part of their IP and it's part of their trademark. So we have to get those colours absolutely spot on. So we use colour measuring tools, all sorts of complicated stuff to try and get our colours wrong.
It's nice to know that the colours itself is approved by Gulf, because again, the colours on Gulf models around the world, unlicensed, usually get it wrong. So it's nice, it's good to know that when something's licensed, you've got the right colours, you've got the right shades, you've got it all correct. And it looks absolutely stunning when it comes out perfectly like that. So I think taking the least amount of effort out of the builder's hands and just giving them just the satisfaction of being able to say, I put that together, is probably a very interesting way to go, especially when it comes to first-time model builders. How often do you guys release new models?
So we tend to typically release maybe 1 to 2 models every year. That hasn't been the case all the time, but it's typically at least 1 model per year. However, that can vary depending on complexity of the model, but then also demand in the marketplace. There's sometimes factors outside of our control that might delay shipments coming in, but yeah, typically is at least 1. For this year, for 2024, it was the Porsche 917.
Right. And did you all launch recently? You launched another one as well. It's not up for ordering; it's up for pre-ordering, right?
That's it. Yeah. So we have another model. We'll sometimes announce during that year, but it might not be available until the following year.
And how do you all decide these releases?
So a lot of the decisions are based off extensive research. We obtain lots of customer feedback. We obviously look at market trends as well. We also closely look at what our competitors are doing. It's really important for us at PORSCHE to do iconic models, but also making sure that we're offering something unique and different in the market. We take a lot of consideration into account when we do these models.
And then once you guys decide what the models, it goes into the production process. What's that like, the production process?
Very, very long. So let's say we make a decision on a model, good example being a Porsche 917. You've probably got up to a year of research and design, and then you've got probably 3 to 6 months of tooling, and then you've got another 3 to 6 months of engineering and finalising. So that's why our models generally take sort of 2 years. On our recent release, we've just about managed to reduce that a little bit.
Right.
But 2 years is a really good marker for how long it takes to actually develop the model.
So when developing the model, do you get like the CAD drawings from the manufacturers themselves and then take it and put it in the computer and it's all done from the original CAD drawings, or is there a element of you guys putting in yours? Because the reason why I ask this is there are purists out in the world that will look at that and go, oh, that's not the right one, or that's not the right car, or that's
correct.
And usually it's because they didn't know that it is the right car, but the body changed for the race, and
Absolutely.
there's that whole process that goes through. So, the reason why I ask is I want those people to know for a fact that what they're getting is absolutely the correct thing from Porsche themselves.
So let's take the 917 as an example. There's no CAD that exists of that. Obviously, it was designed in the 60s and into the 70s, so it's not like we can go to Porsche and say, supply us the CAD data and we'll just copy it. So then we rely on a huge amount of research. We go and scan vehicles. So for the Porsche 917, we scanned 2 different vehicles.
Right.
Because there isn't a vehicle that exists in exactly the right spec that we're looking for. So there's a huge amount of research and scanning that we have to put into. One of the reasons the Porsche took so long is because it's such a research-heavy item. It's got that big flat 12 in the back end that needed to be absolutely perfect. So there was a huge amount of research that goes into it. On the flip side, if we're working with a licensor on a new subject, then yes, we can rely on new CAD data that they can provide us. And we can just copy the CAD data. So it totally depends on the subject that we choose.
So it's obviously it's much harder when you're dealing with something more historical than something more current. So there's a lot of effort that goes in. And do you find that there have been, little mistakes here and there that y'all have had to deal with? And
yes, a good example being the Porsche 917. It had a really long, protracted design and research phase because every month, 3 months, we were realising what we didn't know and what wasn't accurate. So then we'd have to go and find a different vehicle, research that vehicle, or we didn't have quite enough information about how the engine fitted into the tubular frame. So quite often you can say, this is going to take me a year to design. You get halfway through and you realise there's a huge amount that you don't know and you need to go and research. Ideally we try and make that a year in terms of design, but it's totally dependent on the subject and the research, how the research goes. And they're hugely research intensive models.
Yeah, I can imagine, because if I'm not mistaken, this chassis alone, from the original chassis alone, had gone through many various different hands over its racing period, and each one of them made various different modifications to the body and to the engine. So it is really hard to get these things down, and a lot of people forget, that there is that sort of difficulty. There is that sort of difficulty that goes with producing these old cars, because they assume that, okay, you get the car, you get the data, you build the car, it has to be absolutely perfect, but that's not really the case. In terms of the engine, how detailed did you get the engine? Is it like, can I put petrol in there and start it up? Or?
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah, we do get a lot of people who look at our models and say, oh, that's amazing, does it run? Is it a remote control car? It's not a remote control car. We're trying to represent faithfully in die-cast form what that car was like. So we try and represent how the original car was constructed. So we try and follow how you would build an actual 917. That means on the engine side, no, we haven't got cylinders, we haven't got conrods, we haven't got anything like that. But we do have a really faithful representation of what the flat 12 looks like. We've got a really faithful representation of, in this case, 12 HT leads going to 12 different cylinders.
Right.
So if you've got a V12 or a flat 12, you've got more cabling, you've got all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, we don't have, you can't put fuel in it and run it.
No,
and something we try to avoid with PORSCHE, I know some of our competitors like to put electronics and lighting in there. That's something we haven't necessarily done yet, because we would rather do a more faithful representation of the car than having big thick wires around it that isn't necessarily faithful to the original car. It's not to say that we won't look at it in the future, but as of right now, these are die-cast kits, and that's what we're sticking to. That's brand heritage.
And how easy is this to get across the world? Because I know it's pretty easy here in England, but I know people in China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, fans of the brand who would love to get something like this in their homes.
So, yeah, PORSCHE does have a global presence. So we have distributors throughout the world. We do have a lot of presence, particularly in Europe, but also Asia and America as well. We also have replacement spare parts as well that are available widely throughout the world as well. So it's not just focused in the UK. We do have a global presence.
I think that's great, because having spare parts is really good, especially when you have people like myself who have quite a few models that are missing side mirrors and stuff like that. And I'm constantly calling up manufacturers and saying, hey, can you guys send me over a side mirror or a headlight or something? So being able to have spare parts for these models is great. And I think that gives people a peace of mind also, because the amount of money that they invest in this, at the end of the day, they want to keep it looking beautiful, but also, things happen, people have children, people have friends coming over. Actually, sometimes the friends are worse than the children. I have found my
thankfully we do have display cases that are 1/8 scale, so you can protect them from those hands.
Screw the display cases down so nobody can lift
exactly.
the case off.
And you'll have the display cases as a bundle package as well.
We do, yes.
So how many models do you all have under PORSCHE right now?
So currently we have the newest model, the Porsche 917. Within our repertoire, we also have the Lotus 72D, the Brands Hatch winning model. We also have Lamborghini Aventadors, which are still available, but only available for a limited period now.
Right.
And then as of yesterday, we also announced our newest model for 2025, which is going to be the Pagani Utopia Coupe.
Wow. The Pagani Utopia Coupe, that is it's quite a leap that you'll have gone from the Porsche 917K to a Pagani Utopia, but also that is a good thing, because it gives a balance to the portfolio that you guys have, because you not only talk to the hardcore motorsport diehard fans like myself, but you also talk to the newer generation of people who love supercars. And to be honest, the Pagani Utopia is quite popular at the moment in 1/64 scale. So having it in 1/8 scale that you can build with this sort of detail is going to be absolutely massive.
We think that Pagani is a really good match for PORSCHE. There's a lot of synergy between the two brands, being that it's art and engineering together. So we're really proud to have the license, and PORSCHE is currently the only brand to have this in 1/8 scale die cast.
So that's brilliant. Okay, that's I'm going to have to start saving some money now for myself, because I'm definitely going to want to get myself one of those. But when I do I have to have special tools or anything for building these things, or is it fairly simple to get your hands on?
Not particularly. We sort of say a decent screwdriver, decent glue, some files, some side cutters. It's nothing outside of the normal realms of plastic modelling. Is a good example. We have had the occasional model where it's a good idea to turn threads into bosses, because it's a little bit difficult to get those machine screws in. On the Pagani, we've actually adopted a bit of a different method, which should prevent you needing to turn holes in bosses, because we know that's not particularly rewarding for someone building the model kit. So you should find that with the Pagani and our future models, we're trying to make them more enjoyable and more intuitive, and get rid of those little niggles that might take away from the satisfaction of finishing the model.
Right.
So yeah, it's nothing outside of the ordinary. Decent screwdriver, decent glue.
So it is pretty much an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyone can pretty much do it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take a rocket scientist to
Yeah.
put these together. So that is, I mean,
It's easy. Buy one tomorrow. It's all good.
you'll also have another thing about mental well-being and putting models together, and I see that you'll have been advertising that a lot on your website and stuff like that. Can we talk about that as well?
Yeah, so we've here at Hornby Hobbies, we've recently commissioned a piece of research looking at the mental health effects of modelling and that connection to mental health. And it has been proven that people that do model building or that have a hobby are more satisfied with life and are generally happier. So yeah, we can say that building poker models actually will make you happier.
So I think that's a good way to round up the discussion then. Build poker models and make yourself happier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at some new models coming in for next year as well, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a very exciting time. And thank you so much for having me here at Wonderworks Museum. It is a wonderful place. In fact, I can't wait to go around and have a look at things and get a few close-ups of this beautiful model. Call my wife and ask if I can have one. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here at CastHeads magazine for this episode of Cars and Caffeine. You can pick up one of these beautiful models. You can go to the poker website from anywhere in the world that you are. Do you all have like distributor sites online, or we just need to go to the website and order it and tell you guys where you're from? And
You should be able to find local distributors in most corners of the world.
Right.
So yeah, a little bit of Googling and research, and I'm sure you'll find them. So we have got a really good spread in all four corners of the world, so they should be able to find them locally.
So Hornby have got me into trouble, poker have got me into big trouble, because this has reignited my love for the 917K. So I've spent the last few weeks online looking at buying some 917K models and creating a collection of 917Ks for myself. This is going to probably get me into more trouble. So if you guys don't see me in the future, you know I've got myself one of these and I've not survived the fallout. That's it from me, Nigel, signing off. Thank you so much again,
Thank
Charlotte.
you.
And thank you, Scott, so much for having me. We'll just put this in the back seat of my car. All right. So was it just to see this beautiful 1/8 scale that I traveled all the way to Margate for? No. This car is so legendary to me that even seeing a 1-to-1 replica takes me back to thinking about and appreciating some of the greatest drivers in the world. Drivers like Derek Bell, Richard Atwood, Mario Andretti, and Jackie Ick, who fought for victory inside that tiny cockpit. You gain perspective. You gain appreciation. You fall in love. And if the hobby of collecting has taught us anything at all, life is short. And the best way to live is to take that love home.